Did another book make me cry? The only reason why I sought this collection out and actually read it immediately is because of our fantasy. This may just be my favorite book of the year. It was so good. I loved it so much. About a year ago, I decided to try my hand at our fantasy bingo for the very first time. I also decided to challenge myself to hard mode, and we only have a few more weeks before the next bingo card is announced, and I have quite a few squares that I still need to fulfill. Welcome to my final Our Fantasy Bingo Challenge vlog. Hopefully we wrap up with a blackout board. I promise I'm not entering the vlog with a mindset preparing to fail. In fact, I'm actually starting it off on the right foot with a book that I think is going to be an automatic win. That is The Last Gifts of the Universe by Riley August. I'm going to be reading this for Cozy SFF. This is a book I've been meaning to read almost since it came out back in October 2024. I just haven't gotten to it, but my friend Danny Dabbles loved it so much. It was one of her best books of 2025. And because Riley August is an author I've never read from before, this book counts for hard mode, which is exactly what we want. I have a feeling it's going to be a bit emotional. Danny has told me that there are themes of grief. I will say no more. We're going to dive in, and hopefully I can give you an update when I'm about a third of the way through this book. As I make progress throughout this vlog on the last remaining squares I have in this Our Fantasy Blackout Board challenge I have dedicated myself to, I thought that it would be interesting to provide quickfire reviews of every other book I've read during this process, because by its end, I will have read 24 books total. The reason why I say 24 and not 25 is because one of the squares is not a book. I had to do something other than reading, and so I decided to try out the game The Last Campfire, and it is beautiful. It's heartwarming. It's also heart-wrenching at times. I highly recommend it, but you will see me play through it during this vlog. But let's get to the books. So we're going to start off with the first column, The Bees, and it's certainly the strongest of the bunch, starting off with Gideon the Ninth. I ended up reading this for the Knights and Paladins prompt, one of the hardest prompts for me. I obviously don't really read books that have knights or paladins, but I lucked out with this sci-fi fantasy that surprisingly has a mystery plotline. I really enjoyed the mystery. I will say I don't have much interest in continuing the series, even though this was a solid 4-star read for me. If people can convince me in the comments, I might pick up Harrow the Ninth, but I've heard mixed reviews, so that's why the jury is still out on that one. With Infinity Gate, this was one of my best books of the year. It is definitely one of my favorite series because it's a duology. I ended up reading Echo of Worlds not many months after, and both are 5-star experiences for me. I can't wait to continue with M.R. Carey. He ended up publishing Outlaw Planet at the end of last year, which is also in the Pandemonium universe. It's really well done. I read it for the Impossible Places prompt because it imagines infinite versions of Earth evolving in different ways, and it was so well done, character driven, highly recommended even if you're not a big sci-fi person. Inkheart is interesting because it's a middle grade fantasy, also a translation from German. I read it for Not Reading for Content, a podcast I co-host with Danny Dabbles. We had a good time, but it's another series I don't really have much interest in continuing at the moment. And for Biopunk, I think many of us ended up reading something in the Anna and Din mystery series, whether it be The Tainted Cup or A Drop of Corruption, and yet again, a 5-star series for me. I really enjoy the Sherlockian reimagining. The fantasy world complements the mysteries, and I cannot wait for book 3, which comes out toward the end of 2026. You know I will be reading it. Then, rounding out this column, recycle a bingo square. I decided to recycle a square from last year. It was the heist prompt, and I read Last Chance to Save the World by Beth Revis. This is the third and final book in the Chaotic Orbits series. It's sci-fi, romance, heist narratives, novellas. Honestly, such a ride of a time. I cannot wait to eventually reread the series. My favorite in the series is book 2, but book 3 was honestly a great way to end it. I cannot recommend it enough. But I do think we are long overdue for checking in with past Leandra, so let's see how she's doing on her current read. Just a couple hours later, I have an update, and that can mean one of two things. Either I am vibing with this story in an immense way, or unfortunately it's not working for me, which would be devastating because, as I said in my introduction, The Last Gifts of the Universe was one of Danny's favorite books of the year, and she and I typically vibe, but more recently we've seemed to diverge, where she'll love a book, I won't, and vice versa. So what is the verdict? Well, I am adoring this book. I'm going to say it here and now. I'm predicting a 5-star reading experience. I'm so excited. I literally have not wanted to stop. In fact, I'm sitting here providing this update because, unfortunately for me, I have a couple of hours of She Done It work I've got to get done this evening because I didn't do it earlier. And so I'm going to have to put the book down. But I am, in fact, a third of the way through the book. Friends, this is such a good cozy sci-fi. I actually think it's going to be a good entry point if anyone wants to try it out, but they don't want to go ultimate cozy that is reminiscent of Becky Chambers, A Song for the Wild Build. I think this provides enough adventure to get people interested who are worried about the slice of life cozy that I think is often marketed within that subgenre. But let me backtrack. So 700 years ago, humans found the ability to adventure the stars, explore different civilizations, new planets, new galaxies, but all they've found are dead planets, civilizations that once were and now have been devastated by some unknown entity. They still don't know what caused this event, which brings us to our main characters. We've got Scout, the archivist slash archaeologist, their brother Kieran, who is a bit of an engineer tech whiz, and then their spacefaring cat, Pumpkin, and the cat content is peak. I am adoring Pumpkin. Every time he arrives on screen, I'm like, yes, we are in for some amazing scenes, both cozy and hilarious. And honestly, I'm already in love with these siblings. Kieran and Scout clearly have a strong foundation. It doesn't feel as though it's forced. I really love their dynamic and the fact that there is a push and pull. Siblings fight, but they also make up and they care for each other. They love each other and they're on a mission that they both agree is important. So as they are arriving on planets, working for Archive HQ, they're trying to find information, items, artifacts that can benefit their society and possibly provide answers as to what happened to these dead civilizations. At the start of the book, they arrive at a planet that has a beacon. They know that there is a cache, there is information that they need to extract, but they aren't alone. There is a rival organization that has nefarious purposes for being there, and they want to steal the information to sell it to the highest bidder, basically put copyrights on it, and force people to pay for this information that should be free and accessible for all. So obviously we've got a clashing of opinions here, and Scout is determined to retrieve these items because Verity Co. did end up stealing it from them, and that information may be the answer to what happened to all of these planets, what this large entity was that killed them all, and how can these humans prevent it from happening to them in the future. Luckily for Scout, Kieran, their brother, was able to download partially the information that they wanted, and it was diary entries from an alien that was on planet during the devastating event. She labeled it her last stand, and she said she had an answer as to what this entity was and how it might be stopped. So basically, we've been having a back and forth as Scout, Kieran, and Pumpkin attempt to retrieve all of the information that was stolen from them. We also are hearing these diary entries from that long lost alien, and it's been very moving, thoughtful discussions about what makes us human, grief in its various forms, as I anticipated, thanks to my friend Danny, and I'm just adoring it. It's really wonderful, and I'm just so excited to continue, and that's what I plan to do after work. So I think this is going to be something that I binge. We'll see what happens. I did start a puzzle, and I have access to this book on audio, so perfect excuse, right? I'm going to puzzle while audiobooking, and the fact that this is possibly going to be a 5-star read, what? Starting off the vlog with a bang? That sounds great to me, so I will update you as soon as I finish this book. So I could have waited for my hair to dry. Sorry about the wild, wet curls, but it is what it is. I ended up finishing The Last Gifts of the Universe, and I just wanted to sit down and provide my thoughts ASAP, and I really loved it. This book is full of heart. I think that is the best description for it. You feel for Scout, for Kieran, the struggle that they have as siblings wanting to be close to each other even though they have different different dreams, different desires. Pumpkin content was also top tier in this final part of the book as well, by the way, for those who were wondering. That was also great. And just the connections that these characters are making with aliens, beings that existed, I think, like hundreds of years ago, and actually longer than that, maybe thousands of years ago. And yet personhood, love, regret, grief, it's something that can be translated across languages, across species, and thousands of years. It's really impeccable and thought-provoking, but also simplistic. There are elements of technology that are easily explained. We don't get into the nitty-gritty, but there's also elements of the mysterious, remnants. I'm not going to go any further than that, but the remnants were really interesting. The fact that there is enough known about them that they are dangerous, but at the same time, no one really understands what they are, why they are, or how to rid the various destroyed planets of them. So that was quite interesting, and just, yeah, a very sweet narrative overall. I'm quite excited actually because I saw that Riley August is coming out with a new book in 2026. There's no cover. It seems as though it's very bare bones at the moment, so maybe it won't actually get published this summer as it's projected across various platforms. But either way, whenever it comes out, guaranteed, I'm definitely going to be checking it out. Maybe I can buddy read it with Danny because I know she's going to be excited about it. So yeah, I'm really pumped that this new to me author worked out in such a glorious way that I'm definitely going to want to keep up with them as they publish future works. And now I'm just in a cozy sci-fi mood, if I'm going to be honest. And so cozy sci-fi it is. I'm going to be reading The Cybernetic Tea Shop by Meredith Katz, and the square I'm reading it for is independent or self-published work. It fits for hard mode, which is perfect. I don't know much about it. It's a novella, so it's actually, I think it's even shorter than the cozy sci-fi I just finished, The Last Gifts of the Universe. So I imagine I'll finish it quite quickly. We'll see what happens. Sometimes life gets in the way, and even the shortest book takes many days to read. Rather than a cozy adventure filled with action, movement, and just more dire circumstances, I feel as though the Cybernetic Tea Shop is probably going to be a bit more stagnant, more sedentary, because we're going to be hanging out in the shop. But it could prove me completely wrong because I don't really know what I'm getting into, but that is going to be the next book we focus on. I am so pleased that I finished this column in time to review it. Starting at the top, we have The Man Who Died 7 Times. This is a sci-fi mystery. It's not very memorable, I'm going to be honest. I think I can recommend it to people who like Japanese translations, Japanese mysteries, and Groundhog's Day narrative styles, but beyond that, you could probably skip it and it would not impact your life at all. Holy Terrors, this is going to be one of my most disappointing reads of our fantasy in general. It was the final book in the Little Thieves series, and I am very, very disappointed with how it ended up wrapping up, but I know I'm in the minority there. The Red Lamp, now this one is not the best by Mary Roberts Reinhardt, but if you like gothic mysteries with seances and old tales involving ghosts that want revenge, obviously this is going to be for you. I just thought it was fine. The Witness for the Dead is my favorite book in this column, hands down, 5 stars. Since then, I've read The Grief of Stones. It's a fantasy mystery, and you can very much tell that Catherine Addison is leaning on classic crime, true crime, golden age. It's just so well done. I cannot recommend it enough, and obviously you all know how much I loved The Last Gifts of the Universe. So those last 2 books, highly recommended. Get them on your TBR. Okay, so I am on my break. I ended up stopping at a brand new cafe that I've never been to before, and I tried their green smoothie because I felt like I needed just a reset today. I've been feeling like my week has been a lot slower and sluggish than I wanted to, and it was really good. They were so friendly, which is really wonderful. It's kind of nerve-wracking when you're going to a new place. It's not a haunt that you're familiar with. You don't know their menu, but they were really lovely, and I was able to take some interesting B-roll of the little things that they were selling. I love when local cafes or local shops are also promoting small businesses so you can buy other items while you're getting your coffee, pastry, whatever. So yeah, I'm really pleased that I checked it out, and now this is probably going to be the place I go to whenever I want a break from work and I'm taking my half hour. I'm gonna be at this cafe and I'm really excited about it. But anyways, let me provide an update. I did end up getting a third of the way through the Cybernetic Tea Shop, and it's so lovely. It's exactly what I wanted. I needed more sci-fi in my life, specifically cozy sci-fi, and right now, only being a third of the way, I think that I can very much highly recommend this to people who've enjoyed Automatic Noodle or A Psalm for the Wild Built. It's on that side of the spectrum. Cozy sci-fi can vary. It's not always the same type of tone, atmosphere, amount of movement, and this one feels a bit more sedentary, a nice cozy place to call home kind of situation, and I'm loving it so much. I've met all of the characters. I was actually uncertain at the beginning as to what was actually happening, where everything was going, and I ended up meeting the characters Clara and Joni. So Joni is Clara's raise, basically a robotic companion in the form of a hummingbird, which is adorable, on top of the fact that Joni has quite the attitude, so I love the juxtaposition of that. But Clara is a nomad. She grew up moving about because her parents were nomadic workers, just moving one place to the next. Yeah, after a couple of months, after a year, they would then pack up, move somewhere else to find work, and she grew used to it. Her parents have settled down. They now live in New Mexico in a home that they don't intend to ever leave, but our Clara has decided that's not the life for me. I like movement. I like the excitement of going elsewhere. Places get stale quite quickly, and when we meet Clara, it has been just over a year since she's been in the location she's in, and she feels that desire to leave, that wanderlust. She doesn't want to be in this same location for another winter, because winter is about to settle in, and so she decides to pack up. She takes Joni with her, and they go west to Seattle, which I wasn't expecting. I think that also is giving me Automatic Noodle vibes, because I'm pretty sure Automatic Noodle takes place in San Francisco, a futuristic San Francisco, and obviously this is a futuristic Seattle. And we end up changing perspectives to a character who is a robot. Her name is Sal, and she has worked at this tea shop for over 200 years. And she finds herself breaking down more often. Her memory is at risk of failing at times. She's getting lost in grieving, mourning, still having to deal with the loss of someone she cared deeply for, the person who first bought her and brought her to the tea shop and telling her welcome home. And so it's very sweet. I'm imagining that I might start tearing up. I feel like I'm gonna cry. And that's exactly what I want. I love another grief narrative. I suppose that's something that's interesting. We have a through line with The Last Gifts of the Universe. That was a grief narrative, and this one seems to balance that with other themes. I'm in heaven. But alas, my break is almost over. I need to return to work. I need to continue enjoying my green smoothie. And so I'm gonna end it here. The next time I update you, I'll have finished the book. And I'm telling you, this is gonna be another winner. I already know it is. I just wanna pick up the ebook whenever I've got a free moment, because I really care about these characters already. I'm very excited. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys once I finish the book. It is day 2 of TBR-a-thon weekend this March. I've got sprints in another 15 minutes. I feel as though I always time these updates right before I'm supposed to go live, and hoping that makes me succinct and quick with my thoughts. We'll see if that actually happens. But yesterday, as planned, I decided to just stick with the Cybernetic tea shop. We went for 3 sprints, and I did in fact finish the book. It was lovely. It was really nice. It went in a couple directions I wasn't expecting, but I was really excited to just root for our characters. Clara, Sal, Joni as a little side character raise was very sweet, and both of these characters being in different places in their lives, having completely different backstories. It was interesting to see them understand each other, be willing to listen, and also accept each other for who they are. There's ace representation in here, a homo-romantic relationship in here too, and the ending was really sweet. So I highly recommend it for anyone who enjoys cozy sci-fi that leans on the sentimental, on the nostalgic, on the philosophical, because that's pretty much what this is in a nice little 119-page package. And I want to own it. I already know that I want to own it. It's 4-star range, meaning we've got 2 books that I've loved that I want to own thanks to our fantasy. I mean, I don't think a better scenario could have happened. So now that we are 2 squares down and I have 3 more squares to go, technically there's a the 4th because I still need to do the not a book square, and I'm working on it slowly but surely, playing my video game. But I do have a couple more squares to go that are book related, and the one I'm going to focus on is actually high fashion because it is middle grade March, because I'm focusing on The Whispering Well for TBR-a-thon this weekend. I wanted to read a middle grade, and so we're going to be picking up The Map Makers by Tamsin Merchant. This is the second book to The Hat Makers. It has been some time since I read The Hat Makers. I want to say I read it in 2024, so it's been about 2 years maybe. I remember the characters quite well. I remember the storyline very fondly. It was hilarious, thoughtful, a young girl trying to find out what happened to her father, all while a king has gone a little bit mad. Now that I think about it, I actually do remember a lot more than I expected. So I'm really happy to be jumping in, switching genres. I think it's going to be cozy and themed just because it's middle grade. It's going to be heartwarming, but we are jumping into a fantasy world, historical London, and we may or may not be on a ship this time, especially with Map Makers. There seems to be a bridge on the cover, so maybe not. I don't know. Maybe we aren't really leaving London, but I'm totally fine with that. So yeah, I'm going to be focusing on that today. We'll see how much progress I make, and I'll let you guys know once I make enough progress to tell you my initial thoughts. As I continue my playthrough of The Last Campfire, let's turn our attention to the third central column. Now, it is not yet complete, because I still have to read for the generic title, and unfortunately that's going to be the last prompt I fulfill in this entire vlog. So sorry, friends. But the books I can talk about thus far, honestly, this was a strong group as well. There's only one book within this 4 that disappointed me, and I'll let you know which one it was once we get to it. The Dead Cattail Assassins, I loved this. This was my first experience with P. Djeli Clark. I definitely want to read more by this author. I loved the urban fantasy setting. I loved how fast-paced the narrative was. Our main character was interesting, funny, also had her problems, and I loved the way everything wrapped up. There was a court scene I wasn't expecting, and you all know how much I love a court scene. So highly recommended. It was nearly a 5-star, and actually I don't even have our fantasy to thank for this. It's the July Noir readathon that is hosted by Bree from Locked Booktition. All thanks to her that I even read this. In fact, this is a replacement prompt. Don't know if you know, but what I should have read for this square is a book published in the 80s. I couldn't find anything that I really wanted to read that interested me, so instead, I decided to use my one swap allowance. According to our fantasy, you can swap one prompt with a prompt from a previous board. I went all the way back to 2022 for this one. It's no ifs, ands, or buts, and the hard mode prompt is that it needs to be 3 words or more in the title. Obviously, the Dead Cattail Assassins counts for that. And then we get to Faithbreaker. This is the final book in the Fallen Gods trilogy by Hannah Kaner, and unfortunately, this was the book I warned you all about. It did disappoint me. Now, it didn't have a horrible rating. I ended up giving it, I think, a 3.75. I will say that I may have lowered it since then, just because I had such high hopes. I loved Godkiller, I thoroughly enjoyed Sunbringer, and then this book kind of fell flat, not in the end. The ending is actually superb, it's really well done, but in the lead up to it, there were POVs I did not care to be in. I didn't want to be in their heads half the story. I was just waiting to get to the characters I actually wanted to follow, and certain choices made by my least favorite characters really, they just grinded my gears. What can I say? So not the greatest ending to a series. It's unfortunate because that's the second one I've had to mention, because the same thing happened with Holy Terrors. I'm more upset about that one, but still kind of sad anyways. With Luminous, this is a sci-fi debut by Sylvia Park. I just knew based on the cover, based on the description, that it would be for me, and I had a great time with it. I really loved the discussions of sentience, the fact that this turned out to unexpectedly be a Peter Pan reimagining. That's the author's words, not mine, but I can very much see it. And I really appreciated how beautiful the writing was. It was contemplative. It is literary, so it's definitely not for everyone. I know that people can have a hard time with literary sci-fi. I loved it because literary sci-fi was my gateway into the sci-fi genre. Plus, I'm always gonna love a sentient robot character, what can I say? And speaking of which, we've got Jinbot of Shantaport. I love this book so much. I definitely need to read more by Samit Basu. This also has siblings, one of them being a cyborg monkey of sorts, and they are just trying to save their home. They've been colonized, imperialism, everything, you name it, and yet they still believe that their home can be saved. And I just loved the adventure narrative of it. It's urban, but it's just lush. It's beautiful. Honestly, that's the one I'm going to recommend everyone read ASAP. I am currently sprinting for the 3rd day in a row. The 2 days prior were dedicated towards TBR-a-thon sprints, and today I'm hanging out with the Manor. We've got a Scooby Gang hangout. This is our first sprint, and I'm not gonna lie, my voice is tired, and so this is gonna have to be a quick update, but I also just desperately want to talk about this book. The Mapmakers has really blown me away. I'm so impressed with the sequel to The Hatmakers. In fact, I'm enjoying it more, which is something I don't usually say. I'm not a big series reader, and part of that is because 9 times out of 10, the best book in the series for me is the first book, and it just kind of starts to go downhill from here. There have been some outliers in the past, more recently, but yeah, I'm so floored by how well written The Mapmakers is. It's emotional. Meeting the Watchmakers has been my favorite part of the book so far, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we have returned to Cordelia Hatmaker, her family, and her search for her father. This is an ongoing mystery from book 1. He ended up supposedly dying in a shipwreck that was close to shore, and yet our main character is still determined to believe that he is alive and that she is going to find him. Meanwhile, there is an overarching disruptive presence, is what I'll say, and we have ash falling from the sky that leaves people feeling doubt and depression and sorrow, and we also have a map. At least it seems like a map in the hands of our protagonist, and she needs to uncover the key. She needs to find the treasure and find out why was her father so desperate to make sure that this map got into her hands. I'm really enjoying the found family, found friendship. We are having other characters return. Goose and Sam are kind of her right-hand friends who are with her on these adventures. We are getting to know her family a little bit more, but also the other makers, because in this historical London, there are various families that have been known to create magical items through other ingredients, and there's only a select few in London who are even allowed to do this anymore. That includes the hat makers, the boot makers, the watch makers, the glove makers, and I can't remember the others. There aren't many. I know that there was one known as the cane makers that are no longer allowed to really exist because of some dark things they did in the past. But we're learning that other cities have their own makers that are allowed to continue existing, and there might be makers in our midst, at least as far as a bloodline goes, and they don't even know that they were once descendants of grand makers. So it's been very interesting to see that process and to just root for Cordelia as she's trying to find answers while still on the precipice of mourning, of grieving. I genuinely don't know if her father is alive or not. And what's kind of blowing my mind is not only has this been the 3rd book that I'm just blown away by, that I'm really enjoying, and I'm just wondering, is this going to be the best vlog I've ever had where every single book hits? I'm crossing my fingers about that. But the other thing is that this is the 3rd book in a row where you can very clearly see grief as an ongoing theme. What is going on? Obviously, I'm gravitating towards those stories and I'm really appreciating that I'm reading them, but it's a little bit uncanny that this is the 3rd book that has a character who has to deal with loss in some form, and she's not the only one. I brought up the watchmakers and their patriarch, this elderly man who's caring for his grandkids. He broke my heart. We end up learning about his daughter Dawn and why he's so desperate to make sure that his grandsons are taken care of, and they were very sweet to meet. And we're also entering some very dark themes, some dark scenes, that it's interesting to consider this being a middle grade narrative. It's still very age appropriate, but I appreciate when authors are willing to tackle hard subjects, because especially with younger readers, we see them protected through erasure. We aren't providing them stories that make them feel all types of emotions, sorrow, anger, confusion, and making them question the world around them. I think that partially leans the blame onto the adults around them who don't feel that they are capable of addressing those harder to read scenes, those harder to decipher and digest emotions. But I'm really glad that Tamsin Merchant is willing to do that, and I think her readers are probably extremely appreciative of it. I mean, I'm one of her readers and I certainly appreciate it, and I'm so invested. Cordelia has just received really crazy news, a discovery that is linked to the map that is in her hands, and I don't know what's to come. I feel as though this has become a conflict much larger than London itself, and that is a huge difference from the Hatmakers, which was very central. We were dealing with the king, we were dealing with strange happenings within their vicinity, whereas now we've discovered that the problem has expanded to global proportions. That's all I'll say. I feel like I've been too vague, but basically I'm really having a great time and I'm excited to finish this book. Did another book make me cry? Yes. Oh my gosh. This vlog has been so full of tears off camera. Third book in a row to at least make me tear up. This one multiple times across 1 or 2 chapters very close together. I have just been in my feels. I feel as though I'm very sensitive right now. I have a very soft heart and I have to be careful because I will cry immediately. It doesn't matter what is triggering it. And a lot of times it's very wholesome and lovely things in addition to just heartbreaking stuff. So there's no discrimination. I'm gonna cry over anything. And wow, Map Makers just made me bawl because my goodness, Merchant knows how to write. She really can weave a story, have us feeling for these characters, feel for Cordelia, the fact that she has lost her mother and now she's in search of her father. She feels as though the weight of the world is on her shoulders, trying to protect not only London, but everything that is involved with magic, the human soul. And it's beautiful. I loved the ending. It's such an intricate story. You can really see how Merchant has grown as an author from book 1 to book 2, how she's built the world, built Cordelia's character, and her friends, her extended family, the other maker families that we got to meet. We definitely got to see them shine far more on the page than in the book before. So it was brilliant. I'm so excited for book 3 and I'm so excited for the next book in this vlog because I feel like I can't lose at this point. And we're kind of at the final stretch. We only have 2 more squares to go that are book related and I'm pumped for both of them. One had actually, honestly, both of them had given me trouble. So it's wild that I've done a completely 180 and now I'm so excited to fulfill these prompts because I think I have 2 books that I'm just gonna love. The first one I'll address is the generic title prompt. That one was the bane of my existence. I could not find a book that I could read that wasn't fantasy romance or a fantasy that I simply wasn't interested in. And then my friend Danny found a book that I was talking to her about and she said, wait, doesn't that fit the generic title prompt that you've been having a difficult time finding a title for? And lo and behold, it does. And that book is Ode to the Half-Broken by Suzanne Palmer. The reason why it fits for hard mode in the generic title square is that we have a number represented, half. I'm taking it. Half, 1/2. That is a number and no one else can argue with me. It's just math, it works. And then broken is one of the generic words given to us by our fantasy. And so I fulfill hard mode prompt with a generic word. And then I think one of the alternative options for hard mode was a color or number in the title. And fortunately, this book qualifies. This is another sci-fi book and it's dystopian, following a robot, a dog companion. I believe we are in a broken down, desolate Manhattan, but it sounds like it's gonna be a bit cozy. And so I'm definitely gonna be starting that over this weekend. I'm trying to take care of myself as well. I feel like I'm getting sick and yet we still have things we need to get done. The vlog is just for fun. I promise you all, I do want to make progress on it, but it's because I'm having a great time. It's not because I'm feeling pressure, but I do worry that with the changing of the weather, my body is freaking out and I'm gonna be trying to rest this weekend. However, I am hoping to start Ode for the Half-Broken. That is a promise to myself and a promise to you. We'll see if that happens. The other square that I still need to read is the 5 short stories. For hard mode, you've got to read the entire anthology, and I've had a really hard time with this one because I've started multiple books and then abandoned them simply because I either didn't feel like it fit the prompt appropriately, specifically our fantasy being speculative enough in nature, or I haven't really vibed with the writing style. Maybe it's been YA. I tried a couple YA collections and realized that wasn't for me, and now I've settled on one that really works. And the title of this collection is Glass and Gardens Solarpunk Summers. I have such a wild story on how I even discovered this title. Obviously, this vlog has been very sci-fi heavy. At this point, this should have just been a sci-fi vlog. I'm one book away from that, but it is what it is. Clearly, I prefer sci-fi over every other genre at the moment. It's just been giving me joy. But with this, I thought there's gotta be a sci-fi. All I wanted was a sci-fi short story collection. I didn't want horror. I didn't want fantasy. I didn't want middle grade, even though I was having a great time with map makers. I wanted to switch things up, and I was thinking there's gotta be a sci-fi short story collection that I'm going to enjoy. And that got me leading towards, well, I've been enjoying cozy, sentimental, kind of hope punk stories. Is there something like that? And so I Googled cozy sci-fi anthologies, found a Reddit thread, which feels fitting, requesting cozy fantasy short stories, but a commenter said, hey, I know you're looking for fantasy, but I highly recommend Solarpunk Summers. And that suggestion made me dig deeper, not only into Solarpunk, what is this? I should know what that is, and the publisher, Worldweaver Press, has other collections, including Solarpunk Winters. So if I love this collection, I know I have more that I can dive into after this. So I'm just on top of the moon. I'm very, very excited. And I'm really, really excited to learn that Solarpunk is a thing, because obviously I'm aware of steampunk, cyberpunk, hope punk, but Solarpunk, what is this? And lo and behold, I realized, oh, I've been reading Solarpunk the entire time, including Psalm for the Wild Built, Automatic Noodle. I would even argue that Cybernetic Tea Shop has that vibe to it. And I will say, I have already read the introduction by the editor, and she asks this question as well. What is Solarpunk? How specific, how narrowed down do we really need to be regarding this subgenre in sci-fi? And I'll just quickly read her introduction, at least a little bit of it, so you can get a taste of it, because I really am so excited to start this. Solarpunk is a type of optimistic science fiction that imagines a future founded on renewable energies. The 17 stories in this volume are not dull utopias. They grapple with real issues such as the future and ethics of our food sources, the connection or disconnection between technology and nature, and the interpersonal conflicts that arise no matter how peaceful the world is. I will read further. A lot of the tropes and requirements of Solarpunk are still being negotiated among both the writers and artists producing Solarpunk works and the bloggers and critics discussing it. Does it have to explicitly deal with energy technology? Does it have to be anti or post-capitalist? Does it have to be utopian? Does it even have to be science fiction? When I was reading through submissions, I settled on a couple of requirements. Stories had to touch on environmental issues and or climate change, and they had to have an overall optimistic tone. But beyond that, these worlds each look quite different. The stories in this anthology present a number of different possibilities for what the label cyberpunk could mean. Oh, I'm so pumped. I'm thinking that because there's 17 stories, maybe I'll read 5 to 6 each check-in to give you some type of taste of what I'm finding within this collection. It's gonna be fun, friends. It's gonna be really fun. And hopefully by the end, I really can recommend all of these titles to you. We're 3 for 3. Can we be 5 for 5? We're just gonna have to see. Before I get into the 4th column of my Our Fantasy Bingo card, I first have to thank Cindy for sending me this beautiful edition of Persuasion off of my wish list. Some of you may know I ended up reading Northanger Abbey this past December and I loved it, and Persuasion is probably going to be the next book I read. So thank you so much, Cindy. It's so lovely of you, and I will definitely keep you in the loop on when I actually get to that title. Back to Our Fantasy. Obviously, I accomplished the first square with the map makers. Absolutely loved it because Cordelia Hatmaker is someone who works in fibers, in fiber arts, and it's very much integral to the story. It counted for High Fashion's hard mode. For the following prompt, I ended up reading volumes 3, 4, and 5 in A Cat from Our World and the Forgotten Witch. This is a manga series that I've thoroughly enjoyed. It's only 5 volumes, so you can definitely read it in one sitting, or it's just not really a large manga series commitment compared to others. Really lovely if you enjoy fantasy worlds and a large cat that's the size of an elephant. Now, with The Scourge Between Stars, this is another title that I only read thanks to July Noir, so once again, shout out to Bree from Locked Booktition. She also has a year-long version of Black Halloween this year, so definitely check that out. This was a really fun sci-fi horror. It's great for those who enjoy the Alien franchise. It is for a good time, not a long time, but I really did enjoy it. It was solid 4-star range. I think that I can recommend it to anyone who wants a quick sci-fi horror novella. Now, the last thing I have to highlight is actually The Last Campfire. I'm still working on that game, but I'm really enjoying it. And actually, now you guys are seeing me open my second ever Starbright box. I ended up getting Jitterbug. I don't know anything about this book, and actually since recording all of this, I read the prologue, but I didn't get much further. I am intrigued. It seems like it might be Alien First Contact. This is a beautiful edition, and I'm very, very excited. We're gonna have to see what happens as I get further into the book, but for now, I'm hooked, and I'll probably be reading it as a bonus book sometime in April. I am 6 stories into Glass and Gardens, and friends, I am so impressed with this anthology. Hats off to the editor, Serena Olabari, for handpicking every single story in this collection. I think she did a great job of providing varied perspectives on not only what Solarpunk is, but what a future involving humans, the environment, and the technology we have at our disposal can look like. And not only do we have diverse voices among the authors, but also diversity within the locations and the way that our characters are interacting with the world around them. I'm really enjoying every single story. I would say that every story is getting probably 4 stars or higher, but the 3 that are my favorites so far include Caught Root, The Spider and the Stars, as well as Firewall. Now, I'll be sure to have the authors on screen somewhere just to provide credit where credit is due for each short story. With Caught Root, this one was really fascinating because it involves 2 different settlements, a representative from Hillside who visits the settlement of New Ur, and while Ewan is welcomed, everyone views this person with a bit of trepidation because they fear that he's arrived to take some of their secrets, to take some of their own innovations for their settlement without providing anything in return. And so Ewan has some work to do when it comes to trust. And you end up realizing that these 2 settlements have quite a bit of philosophy in common, and it turns into a love story, which is really sweet. I wasn't expecting it, but I really enjoyed that as the introduction to the collection because it was the first story I read. Then with The Spider and the Stars, we are following Dell, and she dreams of far off places, so far off that they might not even be on this planet. And the way she hopes to do it is by understanding spiders better. It's really thought-provoking, especially because this short story spans many decades. I want to say we end up following her when she's 5 years old and all the way until she's 55. I know that sounds a bit daunting to people who already are a bit suspicious of short stories, feeling as though they don't give us enough at the end of the day, but I think it was really well done, and I loved Dell so much. I was so invested in her. Don't get me wrong, I would love to get a novel-length work of any of these stories, if I'm going to be honest, especially that one, but I feel like the mode in which the author chose to tell her story from the perspective with what was going on perfectly fit for a short story. So yeah, 5 stars. That was so good. And then finally, we have Firewall, which is set in LA, actually, a futuristic Los Angeles. And our main character, Daisha, she ends up having 2 charges that she's got to keep track of as she checks the outer perimeter of the city, which has a dome over it made of water to help prevent the fires that are just to be expected, the wildfires that increase every single year, and we already see it in our world, so we know in future times, unfortunately, that's going to be an issue we have to address. And while Daisha and the two teens that she definitely doesn't want to be taken care of, while they are roaming the hillside, one of these teenagers discovers that there is a crack in the water wall. And if that's the case, what is going to happen when the next wildfire arrives at the city gates? And they are pressed for time because lo and behold, there is a wildfire that is only about 10 miles away and quickly approaching, and Daisha has to figure out how to heal the wall before the fire arrives. And I really appreciated that as well. It was such a surprising ending is what I'll say. And yeah, one of my favorites, obviously. And truly to highlight the geographic diversity, not only did we have this Los Angeles location, I also read a story that is set in Outback Australia, and my most recent finished short story took place in what is today British Columbia. So I really appreciated that. I thought this was great, and I'm really excited to see what the second third of stories brings me. But there is light, there's also grief, there's frustration, but also at the end of the day, hope for a good future. So I'm really pleased with this short story collection. It's exactly what I was in the mood for. And really, I have to also address that the only reason why I sought this collection out and actually read it immediately is because of our fantasy. So while the other books I featured in this vlog so far have always been on my radar, I always meant to read them. So if it wasn't for our fantasy, it's not like I wouldn't have read them eventually. This one, hands down, is because of our fantasy, and I'm so pleased about it. So very excited to move forward. I'll let you all know how I feel once I read another 5 or 6 stories. I am another 5 short stories into this collection, and my thoughts haven't changed. I found a couple new favorites and additional examples as to how truly diverse Glass and Gardens is. Not only do we have a variety of geographical locations, which I already mentioned, we actually ended up getting a setting in Malaysia, another one that was set in Milan, and then the last story, or not the last, but the one before that, it was set in Canada, but this time a different area of Canada outside Toronto. I feel as though it's actually Bancroft is the location that was mentioned, and I'm just floored. I'm really enjoying this collection. There have been a few 3 stars in this section, but a lot of 5s as well. A Field of Sapphires and Sunshine is probably one of my favorites. We follow a main character who is returning to Malaysia after getting a very cheap, easy education from the United States. She's returning to her family business, which is a crocodile farm. We also get additional diversity in that she's a bisexual Muslim character, which I really appreciated. And actually, one theme in this second third is that religion is mentioned, either because it influences the thoughts of the characters or it doesn't. It's just a part of their identity. I would say that for A Field of Sapphires and Sunshine, it is the latter form. And actually, probably my favorite story of the collection so far has been The Heavenly Dreams of Mechanical Trees. It also has a religious feel unexpectedly. We are following the perspective of a sentient tree, but this tree is mechanical. It uses its copper leaves and the engine within it to pull energy from the sun to make sure that there's enough air for the humans around it. But unfortunately, it is dying, and so are the other mechanical trees around it. It's also silent. It is unable to communicate with them as it contemplates what its purpose is. It refers back to the Tree of Knowledge, to Eden, and it's interesting to compare that to the story that follows it, which is New Siberia, and there our main character is reflecting on the Garden of Eden as well, because they're interacting with a snake species that is also sentient and helping these humans survive on their own planet. And so we have a different version of the Tree of Knowledge, as well as a different version of the serpent that tempts Adam and Eve according to the story. And once again, it speaks to how thoughtful the editor was in pairing certain stories together, because before A Field of Sapphires and Sunshine, we had a story called Camping with City Boy, and both of those follow characters who are trying to cope with the ending of an experience, the ending of a relationship, and how they can move forward on their own and what they actually want to do with their lives. And so you can see that it was purposeful in having those two stories next to each other. And I think the same goes with The Heavenly Dreams of Mechanical Trees as well as New Siberia. So yeah, I'm really floored. I'm having a great time. And in fact, I ended up reaching out to the publisher, World Weaver Press, because I already want to own a copy. Unfortunately, I can't find a physical copy. You can buy an ebook, but the last thing I want to do is buy an ebook and have it on my e-reader. I want a physical copy, especially because for better or for worse, I own a Kindle, and Amazon, being ultimate evil. But I ended up reaching out to the publisher, and Serena Ulibarri herself responded and said, yes, we still have copies. We can certainly send you one. And so I'm probably going to add it to my cart today, and I'm going to buy it directly through the publisher. And the reason why I had to do that was because the publisher is unfortunately they're in an indefinite hiatus. They may come back. This was announced in 2024. I did a lot of research, can you tell? Especially because there are other collections that I want to access that they've dedicated themselves to, which are just Solarpunk in nature. And yeah, Serena said, I still have copies, happy to send them. And so I'm probably going to be making some book purchases before this vlog ends, which is very exciting. And I have another 6 stories to go. So that's my plan. I'm going to finish this collection, and then I'll get back to you about my thoughts about those stories as soon as I can. I have finally finished Solarpunk Summers, and I had a great time. It's been a few days, mainly because I've been nursing a migraine that decided to last about 48 hours. No, it was not a good time. Thanks for asking. But I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm finally able to sit down, read, focus, and hopefully collect my thoughts in a way that is pleasing to you, who are hopefully still watching this vlog. But I ended up reading the last 5 stories of Solarpunk Summers, 5 or 6, I can't remember, and I really enjoyed the collection, so much so that I've already bought myself a copy. It's on its way. I also ended up buying a couple other anthologies through World Weaver Press. I will have their information linked below in case you're interested. One of the ones that I'm very excited about are Solarpunk Winters. Obviously, they're wintry anthology of the same theme. I won't be reading it anytime soon, I don't think, but I think it's going to be great once winter rolls around for me to pick up another anthology. And it's so rare for me to read anthologies in general, which I'm sure I already mentioned, but one that has had so many bangers, so many books that I've thoroughly enjoyed. I say books, so many short stories that I've thoroughly enjoyed. I'm just blown away. Have there been a few that were maybe 3-star range that I'm not really interested in rereading? Sure, but the collection as a whole I want to own so I can reread my favorite stories. The only 2 that I really want to highlight before moving on to the next book in this vlog include a sci-fi mystery. I was so shocked to find that in here, and it was quite fun. It was set in Florida at this facility that is designed to redirect storms that are growing ever stronger away from civilization. Unfortunately, as a huge storm is coming to pass, an engineer dies under mysterious circumstances. The question is it a mistake, human error, or did someone purposely kill this man? And our main character, our detective, has to figure that out before the storm hits. It was really fun, actually. I really enjoyed it. And then the other story I want to highlight, it was called Cabletown Delivery, and it featured a mobile library. I'm not sure if anyone has a bookmobile that is attached to their own library system. My community does, and it's really lovely. In fact, I used to be a bit of a floater, and I would take up shifts with the bookmobile, and it was great to see not only how far-reaching it was, but the different types of community members that were grateful to even have access to a library when any other library in the system wasn't really within driving distance for them. So maybe check it out. See if your library has that feature, not necessarily for you to take advantage of, but to know that your library is truly doing all that it can, and maybe you should try to support its funding a little bit more, because that's definitely an extra expense that is necessary, but not all libraries can have it. So I'm grateful, and I would love to hear if any of your libraries have them as well where you live. And the last thing I'll say is not only will I have World Weaver Press linked below, but I'm also going to have a bookshop.org list for those interested in solarpunk stories in general. This subgenre has obviously been in my life for longer than I thought. I just wasn't aware that it existed, and it's thanks to the editor of Solarpunk Summers, Serena Ulibarri. She sent me this link knowing saying that because I've grown so interested in the subgenre, she thought, hey, there's other titles not from World Reaver Press, but you might be interested in them as well. And so I'm passing it forward. If you're interested in checking out more books within this subgenre, I will have that link below as well. And now I have officially got one more book under my belt for this vlog, meaning this Our Fantasy bingo board, it is looking pretty full. I only have one more square to accomplish, and as I already said, I have a book picked out. That is Ode to the Half Broken by Suzanne Palmer. In fact, I'm already a third of the way through this book. I am loving it so much. I can't put it down. In fact, I'm neglecting other reads that I've tried to prioritize this week because I just want to read this so badly. I'm so excited for when it comes out in late May. I really hope that quite a few of you decide to pick it up, that I continue to love the book, obviously, so I can promote it even further, because it's so well done. I'm really hoping it finds its way into the hands of readers who can just shout it to the heavens so more people can realize it exists, because it's really good. I haven't really said anything of substance, so let me see if I can collect my thoughts and provide a more succinct synopsis so that you can get a better understanding of why I'm so excited about this book. So we are following a protagonist that is nameless, a robot who at one point was one of 4 made as siblings. Unfortunately, 2 of its siblings died during the conflict, and it only has one other in existence, but they've grown apart, and we've only ever really heard about this sibling from afar. I haven't met them on page. I don't know if I'm going to. Now, the conflict was an all-out war, multiple wars between humans and mechs, humans using mechs, robotic beings, and now that we're only about 10% of the population of humanity on Earth, everything has grown quite quiet in the world for quite a few decades, and mechanical beings, like our main character, have finally been given their own sense of individuality, citizenship, and agency. Humans are no longer allowed to control robots. Do they? To an extent, yes, in certain communities, but a lot of them are able to roam free and do what they please, which is really wonderful to see. However, our main character has remained isolated for about 2 decades, very happy with its life. It chose not to interact with other robots, other humans, especially after what it had to do during the conflict, during the wars. It kind of just wants to forget the past and leave it where it was, because all it wants to do now is live in isolation and study its bugs. Ants, beetles, butterflies, you name it. It's quite surprising, especially when this robot is a 7-foot tall, completely armored being that is very intimidating, and yet it's interested in how ants work. It's really beautiful, that type of dichotomy, and I think it's one of the things I really love about our main character so much. But unfortunately, its life in isolation was abruptly changed due to, at the start of the book, waking up in an unfamiliar tub. And looking down at the tub, it realizes one of its legs has been surgically removed. It has no memory of the attack, of its attackers, and it has a bigger concern at the moment. How is it going to get out of this tub, out of this room, when the infrastructure surrounding it is moldy and possibly going to collapse any moment? Well, something walks through the door that is happy to help, and that is a cyborg dog. A dog that is half mechanics, half organic tissue, and its name is Atticus. It decides to help out the robot in exchange for food, water, and they end up finding another mechanical being that will give a temporary fix, almost like a peg leg situation with a wheel. Obviously, it's not perfect, but the robot takes it, and suddenly it has a dog companion by its side, and the two decide that they need to head off, not necessarily in search of the robot's leg, but of another mechanic, a human that they were told lives outside of New York City, because also I completely buried the lead here. This is set in New York City. Our main character used to live in the botanical gardens, but now we're on the move. It becomes a journey narrative for those who are interested in that. And our robot with Atticus go off, and they are in search of this human mechanic outside of New York City in hopes of figuring out a new leg situation for it. It's been an interesting viewpoint on disability. The fact that this very well-abled robot now is disabled and has to figure out how it can move about the world, the different obstacles that are just in its way and how it can find a way to get around them, who it can ask for help as well, who's willing to provide that assistance. There's also been rumblings throughout this city and outside of it in various communities as our robot main character walks through them, has been hearing whispers of, is there another conflict coming? Is there another war coming? There are robots acting erratically, acting aggressively, and obviously our main character has experienced that. Randomly, a leg was taken from it without any provocation, and there have been other instances that suggest some type of malicious activity. But why is it happening now? What's going on? The entire world is trying to rebuild. The few humans that are still existing, they're just trying to survive and heal the earth so that it's livable for them however long they can live on it. So what is going on here? There are bigger things at play beyond our main character simply trying to figure out how it gets another leg. Can't say this enough. I love the character work. I really appreciate our nameless main character. I love the interactions it has with Atticus, the dog, their personalities, the loneliness that they each have had, their own experiences with humans of being mistreated, and them finding a bond together under weird circumstances, the different types of mechanical beings that we meet as our characters make their journey towards this human mechanic have also been really lovely. They've been humorous, they've been quite sad at times, depending on what the circumstances are, a variety of emotions, and the world is just so well written, so well described that I can very easily see it, and I find it to be quite believable, if I'm being honest, where it's almost dystopian, yet also fueled with hope. I really love it so much, and I want to say, this may just be my favorite book of the year. I'm gonna say it now. I know I'm only a third of the way through the book, but I'm eating it up so much. And it's so unlike me to suggest that this early in the year, I might have already found my best book. That's quite rare. And yet I feel it in my bones. I really, really love this book so much. And I'm hoping that it ends up being the 5-star of all 5 stars. And we just end with truly the best book of the lot. Even then, like, none of them are bad. I've loved every single one, but this one, I really think it's going to be my favorite of all time. I cannot wait to get to the end, and cross your fingers for me. I think it's going to be my best book. We'll just have to see what happens. The time has finally come for us to discuss the last column in my R fantasy bingo journey. But first, really exciting book mail. I didn't think it would come in time, but it did. We've got Glass and Gardens, Solarpunk Summers, and some exciting bookmarks. Serena Alabari has a few books out that I definitely want to read. One of them is Another Life, and I have bookmarks now when I eventually get copies of those books. But you see Solarpunk Winters. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to dive into that collection. But you see Steel Tree, and actually this one is really interesting to me. Steel Tree is a novella that was a retelling of The Nutcracker. I find that very interesting. You don't see sci-fi retellings very often, but then this collection I'm also very excited for, Solarpunk Creatures. You know that I am all set when it comes to anthologies in 2026 and beyond, but I also found this little booklet from Bright Green Futures. It has a really lovely message, and I leaf through it. The world breaks us, our grief runs like a crack through concrete. We reach for each other, for art and science, for understanding in an ever-heating world. We find birdsong, wildflowers, hands and hearts, soil and seeds. Together, we plant hope in the cracks and grow stories to build a better world. I'm just floored. I'm so excited, and I'm so happy to have these 3 collections in my life and in my library. Let's finally talk about the last column in my bingo card. We've got Rogue Protocol by Martha Wells. It's the 3rd book in the Murderbot series. I am currently rereading it, actually, in anticipation of book 8, Platform Decay. I'm so excited for it. It's such a solid sci-fi series. I highly recommend it for those who like adventure stories, who don't really know know where to start with the science fiction genre. It's very palatable, digestible. It has depth, don't get me wrong. There are some serious philosophical questions that Murderbot is forced to address, asking itself what it wants to be, who it wants to be, its agency. There are some really thoughtful questions, but it's versatile enough that if you just want it to be escapist and a good time, you can do that too. So I highly recommend it for any type of reader. I think most people will thoroughly enjoy it. I cannot say the same for Raven Scholar. I'm not going to harp on this book. I know a lot of people love it. I gave it 2 stars. It's my lowest rated book on this entire Our Fantasy bingo card, and I did a video on it. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll have it linked below. But boy, oh boy, was this bad. This was bad. It was a bad book. I'm going to jump over to A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a very sweet fantasy romance. I wasn't sure how I'd feel because I'm not a big fantasy romance person, but this really worked. I gave it 4 stars. I read book 2, a solid series in general. And then The Two Lives of Favenscythe, it's a really fun space opera. I can't wait to reread it because I feel like now that I'm in the loop, I'll understand it even more. There's a great sapphic romance, adventure, highly, highly recommended, and I definitely need to try more by O'Keefe. But I also now own Let in the Mist. Thank you so much, Erin, for giving this to me off of my wish list. I know that you said you were excited to watch me read it. I need to let you in on a secret. I adored it. I've already read it. 4.75 stars. It is going to be a favorite of the year, I tell you that right now. I finished Ode to the Half Broken last night, and friends, it was so good. I loved it so much. This is 100% a contender for Best Book of the Year. It's an author that I definitely want to read more from. The author's note, the acknowledgements, if you've seen any of my vlogs, if you've seen any of my reactions to books I've absolutely adored, 9 times out of 10, they have a really lovely author's note where the author provides their thought process, their inspiration for writing the book, how they felt, the different ups and downs they experienced during the writing process, and at the end of the day, what they hope the reader is going to get out of their work. And I just thought it was really beautifully written, raw, honest. And now I just want to get to know Suzanne Palmer. She seems like a really great person, honestly. And I've also already pre-ordered this book, so I'm very excited. I believe it comes out May 26th. So if whatever I'm about to say intrigues you, consider supporting this author. Pre-orders are really helpful. It gets the word out. It tells bookstores, publishers that people are interested, and reprints are more likely to happen because this book needs to get in the hands of more people. I'm telling you right now. Truly, this book has so many elements that I know a lot of people are going to enjoy. The found family, a ragtag group trying to save the world, not only our nameless main character, our robot with a past that it's still trying to grapple with, but we also have Atticus, our cyborg dog, Murphy, our human. We meet Sharp. Everyone has to read this book just to meet Sharp. I really loved that character so much every time they were on page. I got so excited. I loved the dialogue. And I think that's another thing to really applaud Suzanne Palmer for is the interactions. The dialogue between characters not only was consistent, but it was complex. I really loved the different groups of beings that our characters met and how they had to negotiate and see what was best for everyone in the moment, and also what would push the group further to this final climactic moment as they are essentially trying to save the world, a world that many have already given up on. This is a really fascinating tale that not only discusses grief and coming to grips with what you've done in your past, but asking yourself the question, am I allowed to be happy now? Am I allowed to move forward being a different person with different intentions? Not only is that something I'm allowed to have, but am I capable of it? Is the trauma or destruction that has been wreaked havoc on the world, am I allowed to forgive, maybe not forget, but still move forward, having friends, family, loved ones, and being allowed to also rebuild the world? Because that is in itself a privilege, according to some people in this book. Are you allowed to rebuild, especially after all of the devastation that you have wrought, or that your ancestors, people in your past, have wrought? And something that we need to address now, because we are in a climate crisis. With every passing year, weather, storms are getting more brutal. We just had one of the worst summers. We just had one of the worst winters in my area. That's not a surprise. It's not a coincidence. It's because the Earth is warming, and that is causing more chaos in the energy and the flow of weather systems. We are having a mass extinction event that is continuing to happen for the past few decades, and it's just not a good place for humanity right now. And it is on our shoulders to see if we can try to slow down the devastation that we've already set in motion. And I do think that Suzanne Palmer paints a very realistic world. A very realistic future that is dark. There is 100% devastation. There is suffering that various groups are still experiencing, but she does balance it in a very respectful, appropriate way with humor, moments of care, love, and just reflection that made me want to underline everything in this book. And I can't wait until my physical copy comes, because you know that I'm going to want to annotate it if I can. That's still a goal. By the end of the year, I want to annotate at least one book, because I do think that that's a task that I would enjoy upon rereading old favorites. And this one, it's going to be an old favorite. I promise you that. What a vlog! What a vlog. Honestly, this is probably the best vlog I've ever made. I'm so happy. Every single book was amazing. I want to own every single book, and I'm on my way to doing it. So not only have I pre-ordered Ode to the Half-Broken, but you saw me open this package. Solarpunk Summers is now on my shelf, as are a couple other anthologies that I want to get to from World Weaver Press. And I've got the other 3 that I need to eventually own that I featured in this vlog. I'm just so blown away. What a way to end our fantasy bingo for the 2025 leading into the 2026 season. Was every single book that I read during this bingo challenge amazing? No, I had 1 2-star. Actually, I want to say that that's amazing. The fact that I only had 1 2-star read in this entire experience, that's not expected. So every other book was 3 stars or more. So many were 4 stars and 5 stars. So this definitely was worth it. I'm so glad that I went the extra mile to do hard mode. Am I going to do that next year? We're just going to have to see what the board looks like. And actually, when this vlog goes out, we only have a couple days before the next bingo challenge is announced. I'm certainly going to be making a video where I provide my intended TBR, my hopefuls. That's also something to keep in mind. Most of the books that were on my original bingo TBR were not on this board. So I did make changes throughout the year, but I still think it's fun to make a preliminary TBR just to get the mind going and figuring out what books are on the horizon that you could read for it. But I'm truly blown away. I had a great time with my first ever time doing our fantasy. I definitely am going to do it next year. So keep an eye out for that TBR challenge. And if I can, more consistently, I would love to vlog the process more. They're not going to be like this. I'm telling you that right now. I think this is like a 1 in a million vlog opportunity, and I just had the greatest time. But, you know, we can always hope. There may be a vlog in my future where I have every single book being just as amazing as these, because this was, wow, these were really great books. If you enjoyed what might have been quite a long vlog, this is your reminder to consider subscribing if you haven't already. I obviously plan on vlogging more in the future, whether it be our fantasy or other challenges that I have on the horizon, and I would love to have you join our community. It's pretty great, I'm not gonna lie. You can also like the video. It helps the algorithm gods tell other people, hey, Leandra might be someone you like. I don't know, no pressure there. And if you want to leave a comment, but you don't really know what to say, how about in honor of many Solarpunk books that I've enjoyed in this vlog, including this anthology, give me anything that brings to mind solar energy. So the sun, other types of energy related emojis. I have no idea. Can you tell I was not prepared for this outro? And thank you all so much, really, for getting to the end, for rooting me on as I was continuing this hard mode challenge. Let me know if you plan on participating in our fantasy next year in a couple days, because again, it's April 1st, friends. April 1st. Put it on your calendars. And if you participated in this past challenge, how did you do? What was your favorite book while participating in our fantasy? I really do hope to see everyone in the next one. Make sure that you are taking care of yourselves with water, with food, with exercise, if that's something that you're able to do, and with a good book on your side. Bye, everybody.